Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your host, Brian Berneman, who believes that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome, everyone, to a new conversation of this Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined all the way from near Sydney, Australia, by Allura Halliwell. Thank you so much, Allura, for being here, for connecting once more. And I always like to give the chance to all of our guests to share about them instead of just reading their bio. So if people that are watching and listening to us would like to know more about you, what would you share?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Brian. And I'm so excited to share about the work I'm up to doing and my journey. But to begin with, I'm a consciousness mentor. So I work with consciousness, which I feel is one of the most incredible things to have the honor to work with. And I support people to journey to have a relationship with their own consciousness, but also to understand a way to maybe move beyond healing into a greater relationship with all the parts of them, all the parts, all the trauma, all the nervous system responses, all the emotional fear, all the overwhelm, and really create a pathway for an inner exploration that creates a new level of reality. So I've created my own method to do that. I've written a book called Unloved, Unworthy, Unknown, and I just spend my days just being with beautiful people, expanding consciousness, and I'm very excited to do that today with you on this chat.
Beautiful. Thank you, Laura, for sharing that. I think that, yes, it's a, of course, big topic, and also it's something that, we need more conversations, we need more work around this, because a lot of people and a lot of our society is living without awareness of this aspect of life, and it's such a big one as well that we need definitely more and more of that. I wanted to invite you to share a little bit around how you got into this space. How did you came across working with this consciousness and this connection with this type of work?
I love that question because it was very organic, spontaneous, and it was kind of like speed dating consciousness to begin with. It was almost like consciousness tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, do you want to go out on a date? It sounds kind of glamorous when I say it like that, but it was actually one of the most tumultuous, crazy, life-changing experiences I had. Basically, a little bit of background. I was a stay-home mum of 3 in quite dysfunctional marriage with very stressed partner. I was trying to survive every day by just getting through whatever was available in that moment. I had a 4, 6, and 8-year-old. I was just thinking about lunch boxes and going to school and doing all the things. And I didn't have any space or time really in my life or in my psyche for spiritual development, emotional development. I just was stuck on a loop. I was invited to a beautiful meditation retreat by a girlfriend, and I thought, wow, that's a great opportunity for a holiday. I'll try this. I'll see what happens. I got to the meditation retreat and I realized that something was moving within me very quickly, and my energy was starting to shift, and I was beginning to kind of feel like I wasn't quite myself, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And around the 3rd day, we went down to the beach to meditate, and I was walking on the beach to begin the process. And it was in the morning, I was completely sober, and all of a sudden my body felt really heavy and got pulled to the sand. And then my consciousness began to move from the soles of my feet up through my legs, up through my body, and out my head. And I realized that I was witnessing myself lying on the ground, and my consciousness was not connected to my body anymore. And I would say in retrospect, it was almost like dying. It was like a near-death experience, because my consciousness then proceeded to go higher and merge with the whitest, purest, brightest light, which I sense was a portal. And then it merged back to source, back to the expanded consciousness from which we all began, and all are connected to, and all will return and keep moving through. So this vast void of consciousness was everything and nothing at the same time. And it was almost like I lost contact with the whole of myself, because it was so all-encompassing. And I was out there for about an hour and a half. My body was lying on the ground, apparently just breathing gently, but people just thought I was resting. But after a while, they were like a bit concerned. So I found people around me trying to get me to come back consciously into my body when I woke up. But when I did open my eyes, I only could see energy. Everything was shimmering. The sky was just luminescent particles vibrating. The ocean was the same, the sea, and the sand. And I just felt a complete sense of constriction being back in a human body after being so expanded for so long. Anyway, I ended up going and looking in the mirror. After that, I was helped off the beach, and I realized I didn't know who I was or what I was doing here. I'd had a complete upgrade. And it was very disorientating, because I lost my sense of preferences. I quickly lost my connections to the people around me. I was very much stuck in this between consciousness and being in source and being in a human body. And that was the beginning of a very powerful investigation for me around what it meant to be human. Because I could close my eyes and return to source and be connected to everything and be completely at peace. But when I opened my eyes, I had a nervous system and a body and a life, and I had to begin to integrate that experience and understand, why is it that as humans we have this separation from this divine aspect of ourselves. So consciousness was pretty much my ride or die from there on in. And we kind of worked together to come through that. That was 7.5 years ago now.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's one of the things that a lot of times, like I talk with clients, but as well a lot of times with people on the podcast as well, that it's not always like this really nice experience, or everything is beautiful and sunshine and unicorns and all. Yes, there's aspects perhaps of that, and also there's this true sense that this is hard. Like there's an interesting experience of that. Who am I? Like this thing that I just experienced is not aligned anymore with how I've been living, which means that now, as you're saying, like you cannot recognize yourself. You start losing a lot of the relationships and a lot of the things that one is doing in life, and that takes a lot as well to go through. And I think that it's one of the things that a lot of people a lot of times don't see. They see someone had an awakening, or they realized something, and then now they are living this beautiful life. And it's like, yes. And also the process is important. And I think that one of the things that you just mentioned, Allura, that I think that has been a huge part of my approach and my work has been that integration piece. Because a lot of times it's challenging having this, perspective of this oneness, openness, expansion, abundance, and then and this and this body and this, as you're saying, like this with all of the trauma that it has, with all of the conditions and circumstances, and the there's a limit to my physical body, and how I can live my life, and how do we integrate this piece, because as you're saying, like we we have that consciousness connection, that oneness, and at the same time we have this. So how do we integrate all of that?
Oh, it's such a beautiful question. And I think it's so relevant for so many people. I meet a lot of people that have also gone through massive awareness awakenings, either through spiritual journeys or plant medicine or just catharsis and big traumas and things happening in their lives. But yes, my core interest was how do we meet that intersection between our divine nature and our human experience? And also, how do we meet the intersection between this huge awakening that happens within us and how we meet the reality around us? So I developed a body of work around the interface, which is the piece between our internal world and our external reality, which I think is one of the most important pieces when it comes to healing. Because yes, we can have huge awarenesses, we can be working on our nervous system, we can be connecting to all the light and love in the universe, but then how do we actually show up in the functioning of our daily lives, in our relationships, in the way we're creating reality, in where we're looping in reality, in where fear is ruling our engagement with reality, where we have unprocessed pain that's causing us to just completely continue the same experiences because we don't know that there's another way. So that part there became everything. I mean, I ended up having years of mystical experiences. They were just non-stop. And I know a lot of people seek those to find that other part of themselves. And it's a beautiful journey, but they're all just showing you and guiding you how to actually awaken to being here in this truth of this reality, because our consciousness has chosen to be here. We are awake and alive in this moment to have the experience we're here to co-create with. And I think that was a really important piece for me, because in the beginning, I felt really like a victim to reality. I felt, wow, I've had these amazing experiences, but I feel like reality is just bombarding me and there's nowhere for me to find safety in that. So I had to work coherently to try to design that from within me, shifting my internal template, but working out how I relate to everything around me. And that work moved me out of feeling like a victim to reality to being very conscious that I am the creator, and not just the creator of the good parts, the creator of the evolution in our human journey, which means that we want to experience it all. We want to not just have these high level connected parts. We want to know the mastery of what happens when we're in our wounding, what happens when we're in our separation patterns with, in relationships, to our purpose, to our safety in our material condition. How do we work with that part? That's the one that we really need to put our attention on.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I think that it's such an important thing to realize that, as you're saying, that shift from the victim space or state to co-creator, and that empowerment that comes from understanding that. Because yes, like I was recently um, leading this retreat, and I was talking about how it creates such a different perspective if I understand, like, I am creating this. I'm creating all of the circumstances, consciously or unconsciously. I am creating all of that, of what is happening. And I have the chance and I have the tools to actually shift that and create a change. And one of the biggest things that I was saying, even in the retreat, I was saying the experience of the retreat can be beautiful, and yet as well we need to live this every single day, every single moment. It's not like as you're saying, like we can have these beautiful big experiences and then like go back to real life, and it's like no, yes, we need to integrate it and continue it all of the time and become more and more conscious as we're moving through that. And it might be a process that I usually say a process of unlearning to get to that place, but it is doable.
Oh, yes, of course. And I think this is so important to realize that there are some very core aspects of reality that I think we need to come into a relationship with. And for me, the biggest one that I realized I had to reconfigure how I perceived it was the patternings of what I call the core wounds. So there's three core wounds that I witness the majority of humanity has on some degree. And these are the core wounds of feeling unloved, unworthy, unknown. Now, these core wounds, everyone I've met, there's not one person that I have met that has not had one of these wounds, if not all three of them. Feeling unloved, unworthy, just, not enough, not validated, not not creating, not receiving, not being enough in life, or unknown, feeling disconnected from self, feeling misunderstood by others, feeling unable to express, or feeling unsafe in the unknown. So these three wounds I found are almost benchmarks of humanity. And what I saw they created was this very predictable, energetic design. Whereas humans, we want to survive our external experience, and we're not looking for survival now on levels of material survival like food, shelter, a mate, a tribe. We're looking for levels of survival in terms of these three wounds. Who is going to love us? Are we going to be enough? Are we going to make it? Who's going to understand us? Are we going to be safe? So our whole lives are unconsciously being coded around how we can create safety and connection in those three ways. And this is an underlying design pattern. This is not something that we all just create. This is something that is embedded in the reality. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, we have to work with this like it's actually a pathway to reconnect to the source of ourselves and to use the material that's in these pathways for our evolution. And often what will happen is we will have had these very core fractures, I call them, which are core traumas, where we really deeply began to believe on a cellular, energetic, emotional, nervous system, and mental level that we are actually at the mercy of those wounds, that we aren't loved, we aren't safe, we aren't enough. And we internalize, and then we keep looking for the evidence and the repetitive looping that is true. And we do that unconsciously. And we create a whole existence around trying to find something outside of ourselves to complete us, to make us feel like we've arrived. And the more and more we search for that, the more and more we separate from ourselves, but the more and more we have these loops come up that we feel like we never arrive. We never get that thing we always wanted. And when I saw that also, I was like, oh my God, this has to be restructured. This has to be rewritten at the core of us to create a new level of reality around us. So that's when I created the consciousness method to step through the phases of understanding how we get trapped in these unconscious modes and how we can make them conscious in our relationship to consciousness.
Yes, beautiful. I think that's one of the things that through the years I got more and more understanding around how if we're living in autopilot, those which I call mechanisms of survival based on those wounds, they are what are leading our life. It's not us leading our life, it's as you're saying, because our entire system and all of those aspects, from the cellular to the nervous system and to the mental, all of those aspects that you mentioned, believe the story of that mechanism or that wound. Now we are behaving according to that. And it's one of the things that a lot of times I use, well, different methods, but a lot of times with the family constellations that I support a lot of people with, we work on acknowledging that and to be able to rewire our experience of that, so that that's no longer the leading energy or
Yeah.
consciousness, in a sense, of how our life is. And I think it's very, very important to be able to do that.
That's beautiful work. Yes,
Mm.
so powerful.
Mm.
And I suppose the main way that I work with this is via internal processing. So introducing the concept that we are a multidimensional being and that we think things are fixed, but they're actually very fluid. And we need to find the pathway within the body to move these things. A lot of the time, there needs to be a new relationship with one of the most important parts of our human experience, which is our suffering and our pain and our fear. So I work coherently to support people to understand a new relationship with that. Suffering is the ongoing experience of us avoiding our pain. It's the ongoing repetitious thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that keep us in the same very, very addictive loop of being the same human and having the same experience. And that magnetizes reality. Reality wants to really come into that to actually show you that there's a way through, but we get confused in that and we just get stuck in suffering. So, working quite significantly with pain in the body means that we find pain as a portal, as a cellular portal through the body. And when I say find pain, what happens is when we have these fractures, there are these codings that get trapped in the body. So we get trapped in the memory, but also then the emotional and the visceral sensation of how the body has had to try to survive those fractures. And when they don't get processed completely and they're not honored in the way they need to be, we form a density around that. And that density results in a fear. Because the only thing every human fears is their own pain. The only thing every human will ever fear is what will happen if that thing happens and I will experience pain. So I was like, wow, well, we can circumnavigate fear on the biggest level. We just need to go straight to the pain. Not the suffering, but the truth of the pain. And I have a lot of people come and work with me that have done like decades of psychosomatic work and spiritual work, but don't quite yet get this concept that pain is actually a connecting point back to the source of ourselves. And when they land in this, it's such a revelation because you no longer need to run or create a life that is avoiding this pain. It's very cathartic, it's deep work, and it almost feels like a death of the limited self because that pain has held a huge level of identity that's like, I can't go there, I can't do that. So we go into the place, the fear protects that really like viscerally. And then we go to the place where we can find that beneath, that deep reconnective pain. And when we realize that it's safe inside to be with that pain, we begin to create internal safety. And if your internal template has safety around that pain, your reality is going to be safer. You're not going to live in the same level of fear.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And I think that, you know, from it's interesting because I was just, as you were sharing that, I was going back to when one of the things that I practiced for a long time was and is Tibetan Buddhism. And in the Tibetan Buddhist teachings, the three poisons, as they are called, are ignorance, aversion, and attachment. And that is what leads to suffering. because we're trying to avoid, as you're saying, all of these things that are going to be painful. We create suffering because there's a lot of things that we're trying to be attached, and without realizing this is impermanent and we want to keep it. We create more suffering, and all of that comes from the ignorance that we have, that we believe that reality is not as it is. Therefore, we are not allowing the nature of what's happening to happen. And I think that's so important, especially with the fact, as you were mentioning there, with the safety. Safety is so important, because if we don't feel safe, like, our life is so different.
Oh my gosh, it's another coding because it's all frequency based and energetically based, the projection that we create of reality. And when we really understand how that mechanism works, that we are literally the quantum projector of our experience, and that we can shift the internal template to get a different projection. But also we can also take the information that's being shown to us as a mirror to show us where to go to do that work. So a lot of people, you're right, like, are attaching to things and wanting things to be different, but not realizing that the information that we receive on the outside is not that you're doing it wrong, or your thoughts are wrong, or that you're not healing properly. It's just evolutionary material. And when people stop shaming, blaming, and guilting themselves for not getting their healing journey right, they can actually take that material and work with it so coherently internally that the reality shifts. And the magic of it is that reality shifts organically and effortlessly and immediately. When you've shifted a part of you, it just shifts everything. It's like a kaleidoscope. If you're holding one pattern and projecting that pattern will be all around you. You'll witness that pattern, you'll go in, you'll shift the kaleidoscope, and then you're getting a new pattern of reality. And this is the thing that I love about reality creation, is that we can work with reality in that way. And I think it's so different to manifestation, because manifestation is often coming from our sense of lack or separation from something we deeply desire, that we think is going to make us finally feel better, feel loved, worthy, or known. And yet the reverse is true. Like, the organic divine creation that comes through us is way better, way more coherent, way vaster than anything we can desire from the limitation of us. Not to say it's not beautiful and healthy to just enjoy the pleasure of life and experience everything, but just not to limit ourselves to only want what we feel is separate from us, to be creating from within. And I find it's funny, a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to create all these things. They create the relationship with themselves and they're so satisfied that they're just like, let reality bring me the best that it can because I feel so good. It's such a different paradigm to be living in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, I worked through the years with so many people that have so much stuff and have achieved so much with their work and money and things like that, and they're completely unhappy with the reality, and and that doesn't mean that having that is what made them unhappy. It's just that they were unhappy, and those things weren't able to fill that gap that they had there. And I think that this is one
Yes.
of the things that, when we're able to understand, I talk about this a lot of times, and sometimes it's challenging for people. I have found, when we are using certain words, to understand what we mean, because multidimensionality, for example, uh, what you were saying, the kaleidoscope, it's that's a different reality, like a different dimension in a sense as well. Like, if I am looking and I have my glasses and I take off my glasses, I'm looking at a different reality. So therefore, multiple realities exist, and it's not perhaps what we have seen in movies or things like that. It can be those things, and it can also be as simple as just an internal shift, as you were saying. Like, we shift that template, that energetic template that we have, and we just shift, like the dial on the radio, as a frequency, and then our reality is different, and then what we experience is different, and then we are able to navigate the 3D life from a different place. That again, that doesn't mean that we cannot enjoy the things from here. It's part of the other reality, enjoying them. It's just that we understand as well its place.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly what I feel. That interface is so powerful when you realize that it's not fixed. Anything, I have people come to me with some of the most, traumatic things that they think are never going to change, that it's never going to be any different, or that the relationship that they have with a loved one, a parent or a child, can never shift now, that everything is stuck. And that fixed aspect of ourselves, that's the one that I'm most passionate probably about working with, is helping people realize that nothing is fixed. We are the only ones fixing it. There's always potentiality. There's always, a path. And that's when we get that going, it's like, whoa, we can create anything here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, and it's one of the things I think that's super powerful for us is knowing that we can at any given moment choose differently, change. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. It's simple. Like that's always what I said. Like just because something is simple doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's based on where we are and what we are allowing or we are not allowing consciously or unconsciously. And I think that, as we are saying, when we're able to first know it's a possibility, I can actually do this and I can change things, then, okay, how do I need to work on myself to be able to get to that place that then I know I can do that?
Yeah. And I sense then that's, for me, that piece is the relationship to consciousness. It's that relationship to something vaster. And, people might call it God, they might call it source, they might call it the universe. It's just that knowing that you are relating to something so intelligent and so loving. And when you begin to develop that relationship and know that wholeheartedly, because you know how to deal with the things that you felt you never could deal with, then life becomes so much more, more divine and more enjoyable and easier on a level of understanding that everything is evolving you. So even the hard things become like, whoa, this is happening because I'm being stretched to grow, to see more, to feel more, to know more. And that is so benevolent and so loving for us. We just need to remember that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And Allura, I'm wondering if for everyone that is listening to us, what might be signs that they could see on themselves that might lead them to work with you and with the consciousness method? It's like what type of people might say like, oh, this is me.
Yeah. The people I love working with are the ones that are really sensitive. They've felt everything their whole lives. They are aware that there is pain there. They've been very self-reflexive, so they've been looking at things, thinking about things, maybe for a short period, some for a very long period. But there's a feeling within the people I work with that there is more, that there's a piece in the puzzle that they haven't quite got yet, that they're committed to their healing journey and they're committed to themselves, but they just need to find that missing piece so that they can take all the knowledge that they have around how to heal and actually embody it and live it in the reality. So it's the ones that are seeking, the ones that are wanting to know more. And I have just the community that are working in this space. All my love is for them, for the people doing this work to know that you can shift realities and yourself. And it takes bravery. It takes a commitment and it takes bravery. But when you step it through, it's just phenomenal to witness. And I have a beautiful podcast called the Consciousness Method Podcast. And it's actually just all the beautiful humans that have done or are doing this work and their stories of how they've shifted within and around them. And so, yes, I'm just deeply committed to helping the souls that are feeling a little bit lost, but know there's something more.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I think that, you just mentioned that the word, that I usually use the word courage. Someone with the bravery, as you said, that we we need to choose and to step into this space, and that can take a lot of courage or bravery, depending on which word resonates more with us. Of, you know, we are doing something different and we need to step into it, and it's going to be a process. At least that's usually how I talk about it.
Yeah,
It's a process. It's not just a okay, like 1 second. It's a process of, in my words, and of unlearning, of shifting, healing, and rewiring. That those are some
absolutely.
of the words that I use. There's other words to say something similar, but it's about being able to understand, like, I'm going to step into this. I don't know where it's going to lead me, and I'm still going to step into this.
I love that so much. And that's often the point where people go, I can feel fear arise. They're like, I want to do this, but I can feel some level of fear. And I'm like, that is exactly what we want to feel. Because that means you're about to disrupt that limited identity and you're about to change. That's why you feel the fear. Because it always is that sense. It's like, oh, the fear does not want you to change. The fear wants you to stay connected to it and to that limitation. So when you feel the fear that, oh, wow, this feels like something I want to do, but I'm scared, it's like, well, that's good. That means we're on the right track and you're resonating with the potential that's here for you.
So
Yeah.
for people that are listening and perhaps are in that space that they are feeling that fear, what would you say to them?
Yes, dive in. Come and do some of the work and experience what is available and how you can shift your reality, and just know that you are absolutely able to do this. I've met so many people from all walks of life in all, stages of their healing journey that are like, wow, this is something here for me. And I'm coming to New Zealand. I'm coming to Auckland for a retreat late August. So you can come and experience what it's like then. And there's so many other paths that we can explore as well.
Beautiful. Um, what's one thing, and perhaps, you just mentioned it in the conversation, but what's one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew?
Oh, that they can transform, that they are creating their reality in a way that they can actually absolutely create wholeness within them. They can create a loving experience around them, and that anything they feel is limiting them from doing that can be worked with. And maybe not everything can be changed. Maybe there are some things in life that we just cannot like from a physical perspective, shift. But we can shift the way we perceive those things. We can shift the way that we experience them. We can understand them from another level of consciousness that doesn't trap them into our suffering. So I would love everybody to know that we're all free, sovereign beings that have amazing potential to connect with everything that's going on in our lives in a very expanded, loving way.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Laura, for sharing that. And for everybody that has been watching and listening to us, and if they are resonating with what you're sharing and they would want to reach out to you or connect or work with you, where can they find you? What are the ways that they can engage with you?
Oh, thank you for asking. So, yes, we've got a beautiful retreat happening in Auckland, which will be very exciting at the end of August. And if this goes live after that, you can find me at Allura Halliwell. You can send me a message and we can chat and see if this work aligns for you. And I also have the book, Unloved, Unworthy, Unknown, and you can get that on Amazon. And yeah, I'm just here to connect with all of you. So I look forward to it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Allura, for being here. Thank you for everybody that has been watching and listening to us. As always, what did you hear? What resonated with you? I would love for you to share your experience, whatever it is that you're finding this podcast, this episode. As always, thank you so much. And thank you, Allura, once more. And yeah, I'll connect with you sometime shortly. But thank you, everyone. And see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye.
Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.